Buckle up, everybody, because we're going beyond the borderline with your hosts, Connor, Cam, Phil, and for episode 3, we got a new host joining us, and it's Ryan.
What up?
Whoop, whoop.
Welcome to the show. Okay, so today, last week, if you didn't watch it, last episode. If you didn't listen to it, go listen to it immediately. Drop everything you're doing right now. But we talked about basically the future of humanity, and then we pivoted to what did we talk about after that? We got onto Elon Musk, Tesla, SpaceX, kind of technological innovation and where that's headed. So to pivot off of that this week, we decided, since we were talking about Elon and stuff like that, to discuss something really interesting, which is basically the nature of genius and what it means to be a genius, how these people come about, talk about their importance, if it can be learned or if it's, natural, and then we'll just go from there. So anyone have any thoughts off the bat on that, or what do you guys think?
Yeah, I actually was kind of thinking about this recently, and when I think of genius, I guess the first two people that come to my mind are Mr. Bezos and Mr. Musk. And to start off their genius, it was just a simple idea that they had and have just innovated since. With Elon Musk, it was PayPal, just being able to monetize websites and stuff like that and put your and facilitate payments online. And Amazon started off as a book sharing service on the internet, and it's just growing. So these geniuses with vision, sometimes one small simple thing is all it is, and then you kind of just snowball from there and grow and grow and grow.
Well, there's two components, because we have to separate it into there are people who have genius in the sense of their intellect, but then some people do nothing with that, right? And then other people, like the people you just mentioned, just have this drive and this ambition that, combined with their intellect, forms this perfect storm, and they just end up as these meteoric stars, and it's like that's kind of like a separate thing in and of itself. It's there's the intelligence factor, and what are these people, what about their brains is different that makes them capable of having these ideas in the first place. But then there's that phenomenal drive that's they're just a freaking engine, dude. We talked about Elon Musk last week, working 80-hour weeks and shit, sleeping on the floor of the factory. That is not a normal person. Normal people don't do that, even if they are smart, so it's what makes someone that way. And the fact that we admire them so much is there's a spark of it in everybody, or these people wouldn't be admired because everyone wants to be that.
I'm glad you brought that up, Cam, because I was thinking the exact same thing. If you're, you can be intelligent and you can be a genius in that sense in terms of intellect, but if you don't have the capacity to execute that genius, then are you really a genius, right? If you're just sitting around all day in a think tank thinking about, thought experiments, that's all well and good. But if you're not using that genius for change, if you're not using that genius to achieve something, then are you really a genius? And I think people like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, what's his name? Bill Gates, people like that have really proven they've really pushed the veil on. We're looking purely at technological genius here, but they've really pushed the veil on that, and are responsible even for a lot of the things that we see in pop culture and in different sci-fi movies, all those terms that that directors and writers like to use in those movies. A lot of that is because of the genius that was developed by people like Bill Gates, Elon Musk, and Jeff Bezos.
Do you think that so since we split it into those two parts, the work ethic part, and do you think that, so the question of can genius be learned or taught, or is it genetic? If we look at it from that perspective, then you could say theoretically anyone could be a quote unquote genius if they worked hard enough. Do you think that's true?
I think the biggest part is the vision, because when you look at like the geniuses of our generation, like Steve Jobs and Gates and all those people that were discussed before, it's like there's a vision that they have, and they see like essentially like the laziest, like what can I do to make the interface for people the easiest thing possible. That's essentially what it is, right?
Yeah.
It's just making life easier for everyone. So I think there has to be some sort of for like the genius of like the tech era, whatever you want to call that era, there needs to be some sort of vision. And then you also need to have, just as in tech, you need to have some sort of background in like software engineering and stuff like that to make that vision come to fruition. Because I feel like a lot of people have a lot of really good ideas,
Mhm.
but being able to actually code that idea or build like that computer chip or whatever it is is a much different breed than actually just having that vision and saying, yeah, this is my vision.
Yeah.
But I guess with Steve Jobs, you could argue that the was the true genius, and
Yep.
and
True, yeah.
Steve Jobs is just the visionary. But like together they're just like one super genius.
Yeah.
So to address your question more directly, Cam, I don't think true genius can be taught, because you can't teach someone to come up with great ideas, right? Like
Yeah.
coming up with a revolutionary idea is not something that can be taught. It's revolutionary for that very reason, right? It's you thought of something that no one else thought of. You can't teach people to think that way. It's just how
Mhm.
you're bred. It's how you're made.
It must be hard for like, the strange thing is these people don't seem to be narcissists. Like, thinking about that, like if you had just supreme intellect and you've achieved so much, like, you know how easy it would be to be a narcissist and be like, I'm the greatest person ever. Because if you think that like, yeah, I'm born like this, like eh, no one else by working as hard as I worked could come to where I am, then you could even be like, well, God, God made me this way. God put me on the earth for this purpose. Like, I'm just amazed that like when you listen to Elon Musk, he's like humble and, down to earth, and not just like the biggest narcissist on earth, but
Maybe this is a
maybe,
different debate, but like, is that just in the face of people, or is that like behind closed doors as well?
well, yeah, there's that. Yeah.
This
But
is
it's like,
so my opinion on that, Cam, about if geniuses can be narcissists, this is purely based off the movie The Social Network. In that movie, they depicted Mark Zuckerberg as being that narcissist,
yeah,
right?
true. Yeah.
So is he really like that? I don't know. I don't know him personally. Is that an example, as it stands right now, of my own perspective of a narcissist? Back when he was creating Facebook, yeah, sure, that could be a good example.
Well, he's a
of
different thing, because he's not a real human being. So,
He's an
Oh, yeah,
alien.
he's a lizard person. I forgot.
Yo, hold up.
dude, remember
Facebook's
his
listening to us
Congress?
right now. Facebook's listening to us right now. So
Remember when? Remember
Oh,
when
it's
he
Meta,
was?
Connor. It's not Facebook.
Remember when he was in congressional hearings and like that meme went around?
The
where,
water.
Yeah, him
water.
sipping water like a fucking completely unnatural being.
Wasn't
Did you
Seth
see that?
Rogen in those congressional meetings too?
Who?
Seth
Seth
Rogen. I
Rogen?
think I saw him once in Congress as well.
He might have.
Probably.
That's funny.
Probably.
I just remember he went on a talk show or something like that, and he was wearing a sweater, and it was sweating. He didn't want to take his sweater off. He finally took it off, and there's like a cult symbol in the back of his sweater.
Oh,
Oh my
well,
God.
I don't know about that. It was probably just some weird clothing brand.
No,
If I
it
may.
was a Facebook hoodie, and it had like it wasn't a triangle. It was like arrows pointing like in like 3 or 4 different directions, and like a bunch of like weird writing and
Oh
different
God.
symbols on it.
You heard it
But
here. Mark Zuckerberg is confirmed to be a lizard person.
the
He's got to watch his eyes.
He lives in the
Yeah.
sewers. No, but I had a similar thing about like, like not all geniuses are not narcissists. Like you could definitely argue that like the Wolf of Wall Street,
Yeah.
my boy,
Buffett, yeah.
yeah, he could possibly be considered a genius. Like I would say that he's a genius when it comes to being able to manipulate the stock market the way that he did.
That's a great example of an economic entrepreneurial genius. Like he took, I mean, a lot of what he did was illegal, but
Like fraudulent too, but
yeah, a lot of what he did was illegal. But at the end of the day, he's a salesman, and he's got that gift of the gab. That's another thing that can't be taught. That level of charisma.
Yeah.
I can disarm someone someone who has no interest in buying anything, and the common saying is he can sell shit to a pig.
Yeah. Well,
I
that's the
mean,
difference between
that
like,
good.
You could sell ice to an Eskimo.
Yeah, there you go.
well, like, so we were talking about, we mentioned visionaries before. So like, do they qualify as like having an exceeding amount of charisma, like you said, is also super rare, just like having a lot of intelligence. Like, does that
could be
also
interpreted.
qualify as genius? Because you could say, like political leaders who have tons of charisma. Well, like you wouldn't say Trump is a genius, you know what I mean?
But
No,
you might say Kennedy you might say Kennedy was a genius.
Maybe, yeah. Yeah. Well, I
I
mean,
guess
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, and then this might be like completely off topic, but like, you know what Jordan Belfort did, like, you know, shorting stocks and you know, inflating them and then selling and all that stuff and making the money that he did. You could definitely argue that crypto now is essentially the same thing, except it's an open market. So
Yeah.
doing like inflating and dumping is not monitored by the government
Yeah.
anymore. So it's a completely open and free market that people are doing this daily and nobody's getting in trouble for. And it follows the exact same pattern of what Jordan Belfort did. The only difference is the New York Stock Exchange had a governing body, and NFTs and crypto and stuff like that doesn't have there is an open market, and there is no government that says, oh, you can't do that. So
For
you
now.
know,
I think the
he was a
reason why
visionary when it comes to that sort of like manipulation of currency, essentially.
I think
Yeah.
the reason why they haven't tried to put regulation on NFT and cryptos yet is specifically thinking about the Americans. I don't think they want to recognize it as a currency yet, because as soon as they do that, I feel like that has really bad implications on their own dollar.
Well, I also think they don't understand it very well. Like, think about the people that are actually making the laws are like old people in Congress, and not to disparage them because some of them are competent people, but like, I'm sure they don't really understand, like they're hedging their bets, right? They're waiting to see what happens, because this is something that could impact the entire future of finance and will.
The whole point of crypto is to be an open market, though. So the second that the government comes in and tries to sanction it means that crypto's failed as what they were trying to do.
Right.
Well, you know, the biggest
not
argument,
necessarily.
The biggest argument for why we have regulation in markets like that right now is, you know, fear of exploitation in a capitalist society. That's why those regulations.
Fuck all that. Wait, Phil, what were you gonna say?
I don't disagree with you, Cam.
The stock market affects companies, and crypto is, well, now companies are tying themselves to crypto, but crypto isn't tied to a company. It's the reverse.
So I do understand the need for some regulation, because if we take the Jordan Belfort example for a reason, he had loads and loads of stock. Like you guys have seen the movie when he brings Steve Madden public. He had loads and loads of stock purchased in the company. He had a vested interest in the company before taking it public. That you can't do that. That's essentially insider trading, right? Like, that's why regulations exist, because it gives you an unfair advantage. Now, is that advantage fair because you saw the opportunity first and you took the go ahead? Well, then there could be an argument made for that side too. But I do understand why regulations like that exist.
Yeah. Phil, what were you gonna say?
So, I was kind of going to counter Connor and Ryan's point about regulation and the fact that I think that the reason why the crypto, quote unquote, Bitcoin and Ethereum market is so volatile is because there is no regulation, or there isn't really kind of a compliance structure for like big funds and such. So I kind of would take the opposite end approach and say, if there is regulation, if there is like kind of a compliance structure in place, would that not streamline the approach and allow institutional money inside these funds and kind of, well,
that's what the whole
it
point
would
of
make
crypto though
the
is to get
market cap much higher.
But the whole point of crypto is to not let government interference happen. That's the whole reason that Bitcoin and all these other coins.
No,
I
understand what you're saying.
I don't know.
Go do some research though.
say
Go
so.
do some research, because like literally that's what, if you go look up why Bitcoin and why crypto started, it was because of that. They want to decentralize money. They want to make it like $1 equals $1 no matter where you are. That's what Bitcoin started.
I'm not disagreeing
They
with
don't
that.
want government
That'll
interference.
never work. Unfortunately, $1
I'm
is
not.
$1
I'm not.
no matter
I
where you are.
actually.
That
I
that
agree with
is
you.
That's a
that'll
different
never work.
argument we
That's
can have on another day. That's a different argument for another day. But that's what
That's-
crypto is. They don't want government interference. They want an equal market where if you
But
say
says
like,
who? We don't even know who created Bitcoin. So who are
then
you to
that's the
say
whole
that?
that's the whole beauty of it.
no,
I
to address
I
what
think you're wrong on some points and right on some.
I to address what you were saying, Phil, I get what you're trying to say is, if regulation like that did exist on cryptocurrencies, then we would just have a repeat of the markets that we see right now. You know what I mean? Like crypto would be exactly the same, no different than the New York Stock Exchange if all those regulations existed.
It'd be
Well,
more
I
like,
think eventually the crypto world will take over the kind of what is now like being replaced, which is the fiat currency. Well, I think it's the fiat, right?
Yeah, it is fiat, but
Okay.
I don't think we're gonna wholeheartedly just completely go to crypto. I think we're going back to the gold standard.
Well,
I think that
okay,
crypto
like-
is just another. Crypto's a
Well,
new market. Like,
ultimately,
there's
it
always been
comes
gonna be
up to.
currency. You're still gonna have currency trading. You're still gonna have stocks. Crypto's just another market to invest in.
okay,
And
well,
then
to
if you
close
just,
I
this,
think the reason why we're going to go to crypto is because, I mean, the banks are using ancient code, and the bandwidth on crypto is much higher. So in terms of, because it's well known that Bitcoin is more so a store of value than the use for transactions. Dogecoin at its core is more so transactional. Do you get what I'm saying? Like
yes,
Bitcoin is kind of the equivalent to digital gold, whereas Ethereum is more so like interact,
yeah.
e-transfer.
But the
You know what I
bottom
mean?
line is like
They're fundamentally different.
the bottom line is though, like we talk about adopting crypto as a currency. Like if it's first of all, like countries maintain the currencies that they have. It's one currency, for one country. So they have control over it. The central bank has control over it. So first of all, you'd have to choose which crypto, or if you're going to base your currency off of crypto, let's say Bitcoin, if you're saying it's analogous to gold, like the point is the government and the banks are going to want their hands on it. So there's not going to be some kind of adoption of this decentralized currency and like,
Without some sort of regulation.
and our entire financial sphere is going to somehow become this libertarian paradise. Like it's not going to happen. You know what I
No.
mean? Like,
yeah, probably not.
but I don't know, man. We'll see. I mean, I know next to nothing about finance, so like I'm not an authority on this topic. But
So yeah, I don't know, because like some places are starting to accept it. So is it going to be like the U.S. dollar when you go to like places like in South America and stuff like that, where they have their own currency, but they still accept the American dollar for like whatever the equivalent would be? Is Bitcoin and other crypto going to be similar to that? Like, oh, we'll accept your crypto as long as it makes up like X amount of Canadian dollars or X amount of US dollars, whatever.
yeah,
Who knows?
but what
this is way off of the main topic, I think. So maybe
yeah, we went
maybe we should
far
just
down the
close
rabbit hole.
Yeah. But
close
I
close that
actually
loop,
I didn't
close
have
that
a
loop here
chance,
and move on.
Connor. I was gonna touch on shoot, I forget the point that you made about geniuses, but I just wanted to, we all kind of we talked about a very similar thing, but I think what sets apart those that are able to market their genius and those that have like profound ideas is that they have traits akin to being entrepreneurial.
Yeah,
And they're kind of, there's two different lanes you can really take in life. You can kind of work for someone or you work for yourself fundamentally.
Yep.
So I think they just have much more of that entrepreneurial spirit, and it's just proven to be the most superior in the genius
Well, they work for themselves because
cohort.
their intelligence and their ambition cannot be reined in, you know.
It exceeds,
they-
it exceeds like a job title, right?
Yeah, that's, and like Elon Musk doesn't even believe in like I watched an interview of him saying how like CEO is a fake
It's all
made up
BS.
thing, you know, like
Well,
CFO,
like,
all these
there's-
things are fake. There's just
They are.
you know, they're just titles for, you know, semi meaningless things. And sure, you need, and we talked about this a bit last week, but sure,
What
you
did he
need
say? You
some
need
kind of
a,
structure, but
I think we watched the same interview. You need like a treasurer,
yeah,
like
treasurer,
one
like a president or someone to lead it.
president, yeah, and
And
there was
basically
another
that's
one.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So these
Marketing, I don't know.
I
They
don't
just
know.
changed the
Not
name.
even.
And, like in my job, especially in like in a an entry level sales role, when I go and try and get people to purchase what I'm selling, I look for titles. So I think a lot of these titles are dynamic, and they keep changing so that when people try to reach out to them, I mean, this is a small push, but when people try to reach out to them and are calling them daily for like, hey, like we want your business, da 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 da. They change their job names, and they change what their role is, like the, you know, like what the title is, so
Mhm.
that they're not being attacked by salespeople all the time. And I mean, again, that's
Yeah.
a super small driver, but it's things
Yeah,
like that.
but in the
Like,
end, like
You're
things like that
saying
are
that
pointless.
they changed their public persona to avoid these people?
Yeah, like you can change your name from like, you know, a treasurer, or like what you can go like from a bookkeeper to like uh you know, obviously bookkeeper is super elementary compared to an accountant, but essentially they have similar jobs, stuff like that, you know,
Yeah, but the
like
point is, there's a lot of the point was that there's just a lot of redundancy in organizations of any kind.
Oh, yeah,
And so like these people that are genius level, like Elon Musk, like they don't fuck around with that shit at all. First of all, he doesn't work for somebody else because
No one else can do
he
his
would be
job.
contained by that organization
Yeah.
or person or entity. And second of all, when now that he does have these successful companies, he doesn't mess around with the bullshit, you know, and have this big bureaucracy of useless people.
Contrary to popular belief, bureaucracy doesn't just exist in government work, right? Like it exists wholeheartedly in businesses. And I think
Yeah, and universities,
for
they're
all the
bad with
shit
that.
that we've gone through with this pandemic, I think the one good thing that came out of COVID is it showed a lot of businesses, you know, the ones that survived, that we have to trim the fat. We have to get rid of all this bullshit bureaucracy. We don't need 30
Hope
people
so.
doing 30 different jobs when 10 people can do those. You can split up those 30 tasks among 10 people or 5 people or whatever. Like I think it really showed that efficiency goes a long way, especially in business.
Yeah, I just wish the government would trim their fucking fat off, but that's not gonna happen.
we all know that's never gonna happen.
Now there's someone who's not a fucking genius by any stretch of the imagination.
No.
Our illustrious
Evil.
prime minister. If
Evil.
everyone, like, I know there are probably not that many people listening to this, but if anyone's listening to this who doesn't live in Canada, count your lucky stars that you don't have him as a leader. And obviously we have a lot of great things here, you know, we're very fortunate for what we have, but he is the biggest dunce in the world.
No, I'm not convinced he's dumb anymore, Cam. I'm actually convinced he's evil.
He's just a bad guy. He's just a
No,
bad
I feel like here's my question is like, and maybe this is a little bit too conspiratorial, but like I want to know who's pulling the strings behind the scene, because like he's a supply drama teacher. Like
No, he
who's
wasn't
actually
even
like
supplied.
who's actually in charge?
I think he supplied like maybe a few times and then got fired.
Well, it's
So
the
to call him a
cabinet.
supply teacher is stretching it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway,
I'm like-
we could talk about Trudeau for like a long time, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Anyway, in the next election, everyone vote him out, please. Haha.
But
yeah.
I'm just curious, like I want to know, like I guess back to the main thing was like what our next genius is going to be, because when you kind of look through history, you can see like the genius as different. Like World War II, I would say one of the biggest geniuses was Winston Churchill,
Mhm.
politician. And
Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
yeah, these people that ran countries, and you know brought people out of war and helped with war efforts and that sort of thing. And then you know after that, I'm not super familiar with like I guess like after that you could say like Pablo Escobar definitely could have been a genius. Like he brought in a lot of money into Colombia. I mean, was it?
Revolutionized the drug trade.
Well,
Yeah, I was
most
gonna say.
talking of Churchill, like most if a political leader is remembered in the sense that they accomplished great things, like they were probably approaching genius.
Madness.
Well, that too, no, that too, but
Yeah.
genius it to some degree, you know.
Yes,
If you're like
yes.
some forgotten, like I'm sure Grover Cleveland, you're gonna say who the fuck is that? It
Yeah.
was not a genius, you know, but maybe he was, but maybe he just
Well,
didn't do
that
anything
reminds
great.
me.
Oh,
I need
But
to buy The Art of War.
oh yeah,
That's a good book. Anybody
dude,
that wants a book, Art of War helps you understand people more, and it helps you find your inner self more too, I would say. You know?
I thought I bought that. I bought it on Amazon. Okay. You know,
Yeah.
Amazon, if you ever bought a book on Amazon, it can be a bitch sometimes because I thought I bought the real thing.
No.
It turns out it was like a 15-page like summary of it. And
Oh,
I was like, what the fuck is it? Like, I don't want this.
Garbage.
It was just like a few printed lines in like
terrible.
Comic Sans. And I was like, really? Like, what the fuck?
So
is
I got
Oh my God.
I got one similar, but it was like it just summed up every single page into like one sentence. So instead of having to read like the 5,000 pages or whatever it was like 50 pages, and it's just like, this is the lesson, this is the lesson, this is the lesson.
Yeah,
Um,
dude. So
and
you know how
essentially just understand your enemy when your enemy goes for higher, like like, you know, like sometimes you think you're getting the higher ground, but really it's just a psychological trick, and there's the next surprise is around the corner. It's like, you know, predict what they're gonna do and then predict what they're not gonna do, and be able to mitigate both of those.
right.
There's a famous
Maybe
line,
you'll be the
like,
next genius then.
Is it maybe? Is it
It's probably far from facts, but hopefully.
You never know.
Well, to go back to the genius subject, I think there, you know, I don't think stigma is the right word here to use, but I think when people hear
It's
genius, they
ligma?
immediately-
No,
Suck
Edward Nigma.
I think when people hear
Enigma.
the word
Yeah, Edward
genius,
Enigma.
when people hear the word genius, their minds immediately go to, you know, academia. They think science, they think math.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's a fair enough characterization, because genius, like we've been talking about, can go beyond the borderline, and to use a pun a little bit there. It can go beyond the borderline, and genius can mean a lot of different things. It can mean, you know, like a political genius. It can mean an economic genius. Genius, I think, is a very broad category.
Oh, okay. On that note, so yeah, good point. And like, right, you can be like a mathematician, can be like a brilliant guy, work for like NASA, and like you would never know his name, right? But he could still be like maybe a genius. But someone who's always fascinated me is Leonardo da Vinci, because that motherfucker was on some different shit. So this is a guy who
I want what he's having.
Yeah, so this is a guy who not only was a brilliant engineer ahead of his time, you know, like by hundreds of years probably, but he was also one of the first to like, and he almost got, I think he got arrested for this, or almost got arrested for it, but he was one of the first to like study human bodies. Like he would take corpses and stuff and like perform autopsies on them to discover like the inner workings of the body and stuff. So he contributed to the medical field, the biomedical field, art. He was also a brilliant artist. I mean, he painted the Mona Lisa, among other things. And an engineer. Like he invented more or less, or he had the ideas for helicopters, deep sea dive suits, airplanes, automatons, like robots and shit. Like this is parachute. Yeah, this is a guy who was a genius, but across different fields. Like that shit is really rare, man.
Speaking of
an innovator,
on a macro level, let's take a second here to look at the pyramids.
We talked about the pyramids a little
The
bit.
technology that was required to build those so perfectly, it doesn't make sense that whoever came up with it, or however they figured it out, they were able to do it at that time.
Well, it does make sense. I mean, it's really like, I think we maybe give a little less credit. Like human beings have been smart for a long time, you know, like
that's fair, yeah.
Like it's taken us a long time to progress, but also like we've had essentially the same or similar brains for a few thousand years, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, I guess that's true. If you look at the famous mathematician, the ancient mathematician Archimedes, a lot of the math that he revolutionized, we still use today.
Well,
right?
that's it, right? Like Greek,
Is
you
that
look, you
is
look to
that
the Greeks. We look to the Greeks for, I mean,
is
every
that good or bad
philosophical
though?
question, it's good, but every philosophical question that we still ponder today has been thought of before,
That's true.
and by the ancient Greeks, but before them too, like there's the saying that like there's no idea that's really new. Everything you've ever thought of in your life, someone else has probably already thought of before, So
I
like,
was.
Yeah,
yeah.
but here's my question then is why is like why like if we're still following these, listening to the mathematics, like pondering these questions, it's like, have we reached a point where we're not going to be able to push through, or you know because
Maybe.
these have been things that we've been like, some of the math like gravity and stuff like that, like we have a number but it's all relative, right? There's no like, it's right because we say it's right, but there's no one that's really like, okay,
Right.
I'm gonna disprove that. So
Yeah,
have you gotten to this level here, and we're just slowly building, like, you look at it like, I guess I should explain it rather than just
no, I get what
showing
you're
it.
saying, Connor. I don't think we've achieved that singular point where we have thought of everything and there is no new things to think about. I don't think that's the case. Do I think that it is possible to achieve that point? I think it's possible, but I think the position that we are in right now, I think we've plateaued. We're kind of just sitting at this spot right now, and we haven't found or figured out that new school of thought. And maybe it'll happen in our lifetime. Maybe it'll happen in thousands of our lifetimes. Like,
Well,
there's no way of knowing.
there's a difference between like when I say thoughts, like obviously you can have like your own thoughts and stuff and whatever, and like the way we think and the way we conduct ourselves in the world can be reactionary in the sense that like it changes with the times. So 100 years from now, situations will arise which force people to think in a certain way that is different than how we think now, possibly. But there's still like ancient wisdom, like whenever people like scoff at the Bible and shit like that, like I always am like, dude, don't be so quick to tear down these things from the past, because there's a reason that they've survived for so long. It's because this is stuff which is driving at the truth, capital T. Like we are always searching for it. That's, like the Bible, other ancient wisdom, things that we feel inside to be true, the value of human dignity and a million other things. It's because it's rooted in us,
I'm glad you brought up the Bible, Cam, because we're not saying you should, and I think this is what you're saying, and I'm pretty sure this is what you're saying. You shouldn't take the Bible literally. Like,
No.
you shouldn't believe, oh yeah, Jesus did walk on water. No, what you should take from the Bible is the lessons and stories that it tries to teach. Things like the golden rule and stuff like that. Those are the lessons that are timeless in the Bible. They are the building blocks and the core framework that we all know today as our central code of morality.
There's also history. There's also history in all these, like, and no matter what religious book or text you look at, there's some sort of history in each one of them. So and people are very quick to dismiss that because, oh, it's your holy book, da 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 da. But no, there is a lot of history in there.
Oh, there's some really interesting stories in the Bible. There's some great stories in there.
Well, it's not just a holy book. Like, so I heard I think I was watching an interview between Jordan Peterson and like a Muslim scholar, and they were talking about how it's kind of miraculous, actually, how these religions, the world's biggest two religions, they're both focused on a book. Essentially, they're both completely central, organized by a book, and the cultures within which the cultures, speaking geographically, of where these religions are also based on these books. Like Western civilization is almost exclusively based on stuff that you can find in the Bible, and you could say the same of Middle Eastern, North African. It is formed around the Quran. So it's like these are not just, but which is why I really want to read the Quran, actually, because I'm not a Muslim and I never will be one, but there's crazy amounts of wisdom that we can learn from these ancient geniuses, that wrote this stuff down.
This is not a new school of thought, but there is a lot of similarities between all the religions that we've come to know.
Yeah,
You know, like,
because
there's
we're
still-
all seeking the truth, right?
Yeah, exactly. There's so many, even between between the Muslim faith and Christianity, they both have a prophet, they both have a God, they both have, you know, a set of tenets that you need to follow. Like there is so many similarities between.
Well, Jesus is a prophet in Islam.
Yeah.
So
And
there are so many similarities between these
Judaism
religions.
as well.
It
Every
gets me to
single
think
religion,
that, like,
and every single
it's all
religion
about
acknowledges
perspective. I feel
Jesus
like there was
as
maybe there was some great event that happened that a bunch of the people witnessed, and they all witnessed it differently, and that's how these school of thoughts and religions came to be. That's just how
I don't think
about
it
it
was
from
an
that
event
perspective.
necessarily, but I think it
I'm
was
just no,
just
so how I think about it on a macro perspective.
yeah, but it was I think it was just people just crazy introspection and like thinking about it was just thinking, you know, it wasn't like they witnessed a volcano erupt and then everyone was like
but
took their
you know, like,
interpretation of it. It was well, I mean, it was partly, you know, nature, but also just thinking about like what the fuck are we and why are we here?
as
Yeah.
Christians we believe, or like as the Christians believe, like Jesus fed thousands of people with like one basket of fish and bread. So
Yeah.
you know, like there like you know, whether that's true or not, I'm not to say. But maybe that's a topic for the next episode is, you know, if there were these prophets, like what happened? Why haven't we had a new prophet in 1,000 years?
Yeah, dude, let's talk about religion. Let's go.
We'll talk about that next episode, everybody. So thanks for listening to this episode. Stay tuned for the next episode coming out. I guess we're gonna discuss like religion views and, you know, the potential of prophets not you know, not being existent for like the last thousands of years.
All kinds of crazy shit, basically.
Yeah, there's gonna be some good discussions. And if you didn't listen to our last
theological madness.
if you didn't listen to
Yeah.
our last episodes, the first one was talking about, you know, what happens to humans after Earth. And our second episode, I don't like I'm drawing a blank right now, so maybe
Just
Cam
check
or
him
Trey
out.
have
Just
some
check him
posts.
out. Check him out like on every app that hosts podcasts. Subscribe to us. Make sure you're following our socials, doubly linked down below. And yeah, man. That's it,
Yeah,
I
and
think.
once again, if you guys want us to discuss anything, any questions or topics, you know, like feel free to slide into the DMs and we'll make sure to address them. And please interact with us, guys. We want to hear some feedback from you
We
guys.
get
So let us
lonely.
know. Yeah, let us know what you think.
Take care, brush your hair.